Welcome back. We're going to talk about computers, not actually computers, but what somebody's computer has come up with as it pertains to college and pro football, which is getting ready to start playing. Both are getting ready to start playing games that count here in another couple of weeks. We have Steve Pugh from Compugh, P-U-G-H, ratings.com, C-O-M-P-U-G-H-T-E-R, ratings.com. He's on the phone right now. Steve, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. I really do appreciate it.
Now, do you come out with this every year? How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it since about 2007 was the first year that I actually published it and let anybody else look at it and critique it, I guess.
When you say you publish it and let anybody else critique it, did you do this for your own enjoyment, or do you what got you into this?
Well, try to make a long story short, I was a math student at Virginia Tech,
okay.
And Kenneth Massey also was. He's one of the guys whose computer ranking system is part of the BCS,
mm-hmm.
And I saw him on TV when Virginia Tech made it to the national championship game against Florida State that year, and I saw him on there. I'm like, man, this guy's really close to home. You know, I'd like to see if I can maybe come out with a rating system of my own. And I got in touch with him, made friends with Kenneth by email there for a few years, and kind of worked on it, had him critique what I had come up with, and finally in about 2007, I was ready for publishing it beyond just a spreadsheet in my own house.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what's the key component? I'm looking at your college football rankings right now. You have Oklahoma 1, Alabama 2, LSU 3, Florida State 4, Oregon 5, Boise State 6, Oklahoma State 7, and Nebraska 8, Stanford 9, Virginia Tech 10. What is the number one most important component or factor that gets a team ranked high on your list here?
Well, that's a great question. So when we're talking about preseason rankings, how I generate them is a little bit different than how we do it after 7, 8 games have been played. My ranking system becomes more retrodictive. It's not really predicting the future. It's more telling a tale about the past.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, as you look at the preseason rankings, what that is a sort of a weighted average of how those teams have finished up over the past 4 years, with the most recent years counting a little bit more than, say, 4 years ago. But it also includes what I call like a correction term. And the reason you have to include that is situations like Cam Newton. So the guy's not with Auburn anymore. Clearly, Auburn is not going to end up in the top 5 preseason.
Right.
So you kind of have to introduce a little bit of a human factor in there during the preseason just to solve for situations like that.
All right, I'm looking here, and you have on one column you have the change showing where they are ranked now and what the change from last year, I'm assuming. For example, Oklahoma's up 4, Alabama's up 8 spots from where they were. Was this in your preseason rankings last year or at the end of the season rankings?
At the end of the season.
Okay, so you have Florida State has made the biggest jump here of your top 12 teams. Florida State, you have them jumping 16 spots up to number 4. What makes them so good?
Well, I think it's just having a returning quarterback. I think this is his senior year, and we've seen them trending upward ever since Bobby Bowden left and a new coach took over. And as I did my research and that little correction term that I was talking about, that's one of the things that popped out, is that Florida State was going to have a great team this year. And believe me, as a Virginia Tech graduate, it is hard on me having them be ranked higher than Virginia Tech. But Virginia Tech's going to have a first-year quarterback this year. So,
and you have them 10th.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you how many? I'm looking here. I see you have Pitt ranked. Well, first of all, you have West Virginia. Notre Dame is 12. They're the team with the second biggest jump. That's a team that's on Pitt's schedule, so it's interesting to people here. More interesting to people here. What about Notre Dame that's caused them to go from 24th to 12th on your list?
Well, I think, like I said, I have 723 teams that I rank because I include, Division III, Division II, NAIA, and FCS. And so it really is, it's difficult for me to get intimate familiarity with all the teams that we have out there. But as I did the research at the beginning of the year, just on the FBS teams, Notre Dame seemed to be one of the ones that had some shining spots that I thought would enable them to have a better year than what they've been typically having the past few years.
Okay, let's go to West Virginia. That coaching change there, same as Pitt, but they're ranked 20th to Pitt's 38. That's a big difference between those two teams. What's the biggest difference, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think this is interesting. I'm not going to say that I think West Virginia can win all their games except for LSU. Mm-hmm. I think LSU is definitely going to give them some trouble, even though they're playing in Morgantown. But, West Virginia just has what I consider a slightly weaker schedule than what I've seen. They don't have Notre Dame on their schedule. If you take away LSU, all the rest of their games are pretty much winnable. Mm-hmm. I don't see any other than the Pittsburgh game or South Florida, the last two games of the year, that I think would be kind of pivotal games.
Yeah. So you think that their schedule is a key factor in them being ranked as high as you have them?
I think so.
Yeah.
Really, and that's part of that trend factor that I was talking about. If you go back and look at past seasons and how they finished up, West Virginia finished 35th last year, and the year before that they finished 21st. In both years they were 9-4. So I think the big variance there between their finishing rank in those two seasons was really their strength of schedule, because they had the same record.
I'm looking at this list in front of me here. Georgia's ranked 16th. They were ranked 63rd on your list at the end of last year. What the hell did they do?
Is that right? Let me take a look at that.
They went from 63 to 16, a 47-spot jump.
Wow. That's the first time I've actually noticed that. 47 spots.
Yeah, that's the highest one on the list. That's the biggest one. I'm looking at Pitt. What did you have Pitt at 38? I'll see where you had them last year at this time, or last year at the end of the season. You had them 43, so they came up 5. They still in the bottom, in the bottom 20. Second, near the bottom. They're in the top 40 barely, basically. And the team that they play this year, Utah, is 38th. So that's a battle for 38th place on your rankings right there to start you off with. Now, does anybody use this for anything other than amusement? Your list?
Probably not. I think this is the first year that I've actually started publishing predictions, and they show up on a website called thepredictiontracker.com. There's probably a few dozen other ranking systems out there that do the same thing, and it compares it against the Vegas line. I wouldn't recommend anybody using these things to place bets with, but I think that's probably what people do other than entertainment. Yeah,
I'm looking at your I'm going to your conference. Big East Conference, you got West Virginia and Pitt, which is what everybody has that figured to be West Virginia, Pitt in the Big East. I guess the SEC is still the best conference, huh?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of hard with a conference that big with so much talent in there. It's kind of hard to knock them off the top. I think the Pac-10 and now the Pac-12 is usually up there near the top of the list, as well as the Big 12. So.
And you do NFL rankings.
Yes, I do. In fact, in honor of coming on your show today, I have published them for the first time today. The preseason power rankings came out just 5 minutes ago.
And interestingly enough, the Steelers are number 2 behind the New England Patriots.
That's correct.
Which is interesting because you have the Steelers, despite losing in the Super Bowl, you have them ranked higher than Green Bay.
That's correct.
How's that work?
And again, that's taking a look at the past seasons and doing that weighted average with that. I did factor in a trend factor there for NFL teams as well. One other thing I think you'll probably find interesting, the first game of the season is Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Even though I have Baltimore ranked 8th and Pittsburgh 2nd, just based on the fact that that game is going to be played in Baltimore, my first week worth of predictions, and I just noticed this a few minutes ago, this wasn't planned, I promise, is saying that Baltimore would actually win that game. But, they're going to split locations over the course of the season, and just like last year, they played at each of their locations, plus one neutral game or maybe it wasn't neutral in the playoffs. But I think Pittsburgh ended up 2-1 against Baltimore last year.
If
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, and we're talking to Steve Pugh of ComputerRankings.com, and that computer is spelled COMPUGH if you want to go to the site. this is not you making the prediction so much as it is I don't know if it's a computer, but it's a computerized system. So you're taking your emotion out of it, and you just feed the numbers in, and then you just publish what the computer spits out. Is that basically it?
That's exactly it. And I will say that these predictions are done differently than the actual ranking of the teams. So what I have to do there is actually produce offensive ratings and defensive ratings. And those are based on the number of points scored against certain levels of competition. So whoever the quality of the opponents were that they were playing and scored that many points against, I'm able to use that data to come up with offensive and defensive ratings and then use those two things to predict what the score would be if two teams were to play each other.
Well, it's interesting here. You also have the what's it called here? Let me go back. I have it in front of me here. Just excuse me 1 second here. The game simulator, where you can punch in a team. Let me do it here. Select the teams to compare. Home team New England, away team Pittsburgh. Let's see. And this should tell me who will win that game. Is that the idea? Where does it say that? Simulation. The final scores: New England 26, New England 20. Point spread: New England by 5.84. Total points 46. So you it's interesting because you have the Steelers ranked ahead of New England, but they are playing them in this simulated game at home, and New England wins the game. No, you have New England
first.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
this year.
So they're playing at home, so that's even more. So I'll reverse the home and away here. For you have a box you can check. You can make the Pittsburgh the home team now. What's that do to the simulation here? So if Pittsburgh plays New England on the road, they lose 26-20. If they play them at home, they lose 24-23. So that would be of great interest to the bettors. that number right there. If they're following you now, you've been doing this for a while. Are you now? Now, if I were doing it, this is what I would do just to see how it's working. I would simulate the games now, and like for the 2011 season, I would simulate the games, write down what the computer told me, and then match that up against the actual results. Have you done that?
I actually have, and I haven't made that public yet, just because I think it's going to cause a lot of questions.
Why?
Well, some of these results, like I said, the offensive and defensive ratings that I use to predict the final scores are different than they're computed differently than the overall rating that I use to determine the ordinal ranking of teams. And so they don't include any kind of trend factor. So they're slightly more representative of games that have been played in the past without factoring in any known knowledge about, coaching changes or injuries or off the field antics or, conference tradition or anything like that.